Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Gayla hipped me to a story that I had not heard about involving a lawyer and a very silly ticket. A very silly ticket from the Sydney Morning Herald out of Australia. A lawyer was charged with leaving his car unlocked and his windows down. And he was ticketed for that. Now, he got the case dismissed, or the charges dismissed, but the fact that such a law exists pretty much anywhere should be shocking. Sarah McPhee wrote the story. A human rights lawyer was fined for leaving his car unlocked with the windows down in Sydney, but he had his case dismissed. The magistrate who oversaw the case admitted the charges leave the court somewhat perplexed. So it sounds like the magistrate had never even heard of such a thing, but of course looked it up and realized it was a thing. The attorney's name is David Keith Allen. He was ticketed when he stopped his Kia Cerato on Spicer Street in Woollahra about 1:30 on January 28th to buy some milk at a local store. The charge of not locking the doors and securing the windows of an unattended vehicle is good for a $114 fine. Now, those, of course, are Australian dollars. I don't know the conversion rate on those. Mr. Allen pleaded guilty in local court on Monday, but told the magistrate, quote, "I must admit I don't understand it. I must admit I don't understand it." He said, "Every person I mentioned it to came of an equal surprise to them." The magistrate said he believed it was a provision of the road rules which seek to reduce insurance premiums for the community. So in theory, if people leave their cars unlocked with the windows down and cars get stolen, then if the insurance companies pay those claims, the rates might go up for people who also have insurance with that company. But I guess that's what they're getting at. He said, "It's an outlier in terms of legislation. That's my best understanding of it." The attorney said it was pretty obscure, as he had decided to leave the windows down because it was a hot summer day, and he had taken his keys, which made it impossible for someone to just come by and take the car. And so really, is that big of a deal? The magistrate joked that this was a grievous crime. And I can assure you that magistrates had scratched their heads as well once this provision started to be enforced, the magistrate said. There are, I'm persuaded, good public policy reasons. He noted that insurance premiums related to people stealing personal property from inside vehicles also might come into this. It is about keeping costs down for everybody. The road rules state a driver more than 3 meters from their vehicle must have secured the windows and locked the doors. And if you want to, you can leave the windows cracked a maximum of 2 centimeters. 2 centimeters. Of course, it's all metric. So we could convert that if we wanted to. But the magistrate did not proceed to a conviction, however, finding the offense proven but dismissing it under Section 10(1)(a) of the Crimes Sentencing Procedure Act. So the man was guilty. He admitted he did it. And the magistrate said, "Well, you know something, it looks like you did, but we're not going to do anything to you about it." Outside court, Mr. Allen said he had first thought it was a parking fine, but found it was an offense he had no idea existed. Given the demand for police services in the state, I thought it was pretty outrageous. It's such a trivial offense. I'll translate that for you. Don't the cops have more important things to do? That's how we'd say it here in America, politely. Well, the magistrate explained what he thought the public policy behind it was, one of keeping insurance premiums down. The man who got ticketed said, "I looked at it from the perspective of, why should the state interfere with my freedom to leave my windows down on a hot day?" He questioned the degree the state is constantly encroaching on people's freedom of choice and their freedom to accept risk, along with the fact that the offense carries a fine and is added to your record. So you would actually have on your record that you were ticketed and found guilty of this. The egregious offense of leaving your windows down and your doors unlocked when you're more than 3 meters from your car. The attorney has worked for several indigenous organizations, the Australian Human Rights Commission, and on a number of royal commissions, and he said this was a waste of court and police time. He said the magistrate's response was understanding and sensible, and he would have otherwise asked for the matter to be dismissed on the grounds it was trivial. It brings the law into disrepute, he said. I can't see that it is proportionate or serves anybody well. And, there's a whole school of thought on this about whether or not you should always lock your car, because there are times where it might not make sense. I've known people who lived in areas where they thought it was not terribly safe to park their car. And they had convertibles. And I know guys who own convertibles who never lock their cars because they said if somebody comes by and wants to get in the car, they'll just slice the roof open and reach in and unlock the door. They'll steal what they want, and you'll come back with a big old hole sliced in your roof. I don't know how common that is, but I do know I've had several people tell me that. I've had several people tell me, we do not lock the car, it's a convertible, don't lock it. And it also brings us to the question of what if you got a convertible? Okay, now I understand that the law apparently does not mention convertibles, but if you've got a car, it's a convertible. The top is down, you pull in to go get some milk at the local shops. Do you have to put the convertible top up, secure it, windows up, and lock it? Or are you allowed to leave the convertible top down? Because if you're allowed to leave the convertible top down, doesn't that leave the risk of someone stealing something from your car just as much, if not more so, than the person with the windows down or the doors unlocked? And the funny thing is, I remember in law school, I went to school in Los Angeles, at a school in downtown Los Angeles. And one of my classmates had a Jeep Wrangler. And she would occasionally drive to school with the top completely down, or sometimes she would simply take the doors off or the sides off with the roof up if she wanted to, not have the sunshine on her. But there's different configurations you can do with the Jeep Wrangler. And I remember talking to her about it, and she goes, oh, one problem with the Wrangler. She goes, you can never leave anything in the Wrangler. Never leave anything in the Wrangler. She goes, doesn't matter if the top is up, top is down, top is off, doors are on, doors are off. She goes, people walk by Wranglers knowing that anything in there can be taken in about 5 or 10 seconds. Because even if everything is on the Wrangler, all buttoned up, something there between the, division between, one section and the other, you can pry it apart with your hands, you can, squeeze your arm in. The things that go into the doors that have the windows on them, they button, but someone who wants to can just kind of reef it and get their hand in there. And she said, so you basically learn that when you're going to drive into town to go to school, don't have anything loose in the car. And if you do, before you leave it parked in the street, because you got to take it out and bring it inside with you. She goes, anything you leave in the car, just kiss it goodbye. It's gone. And the thing about it is that, you can button the vehicle up, you can lock it, people can still steal stuff from it. So I guess I'd have to see statistics if somebody's actually done a study on this to determine what the theft rates are from vehicles with their doors unlocked or the windows down. So this guy, like I said, parked his car with the windows down, left the doors unlocked, but he took his keys and he went inside, bought some milk, came out, and he'd been ticketed. And their thinking is, well, someone could have either stolen your car or stolen stuff out of your car. And then if you filed a claim, that causes everyone's rates to go up. Well, the other thing about this, of course, is if we're talking about behavior modification through economics, the idea that your own rates will go up should be enough of a deterrent, I think, to where you should be able to make the judgment call about, is there anything in here worth stealing? And if not, great. If there is, then I'll take that risk. And the risk, of course, will harm me if I'm wrong. So it seems to me that it's a silly law. It's a silly law. So the good news is that the magistrate said, look, I know you did it, but we're not going to do anything to you for it. And the law is still in the books in Australia. And I know that people are going to say, but Steve, have you heard of this in America? I'm not familiar with any statutes on the unlocked car with the windows down. I've not heard of that. I have, of course, heard of people who've gotten tickets for starting their car and then going back inside their house while the car warms up, or they have a remote starter. And there are some municipalities, we talked about this before, that will fine you for starting your car if you're not in it. And they say, well, it makes noise, it creates pollution, and it's dangerous because someone might be able to come by, depending on what you've done and how you've done it, might be able to come by and jump in your car and take off in your car. So let's suppose you don't have a remote start, but you go out, use the keys, start it, and you walk back inside to get something. Some municipalities, you can be ticketed for that, leaving an unattended car running. And again, a variety of excuses for that, but to say that, well, if your car got stolen, it'll drive all our rates up. Not as bad as it's going to drive up your rates for letting your car get stolen, and it seems to me that might be a risk I think we should let people take. But this guy just didn't want to come back to a hot car. He's got cold milk, but a hot car. And where does that leave you? In Australia. So Gayla, thanks for sending it. Lawyer has charge of leaving car unlocked and windows down dismissed in the Sydney Morning Herald. Sarah Maffey wrote it. Thanks a lot. Questions or comments, put them below. Those will talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Life is made of ever so many partings welded together.